This is Jeff Stone of Grandpa's Pride Barbecue from the Panhandle of Florida, and you are listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
Start the game! Let's go!
We'll do it live. Okay. Well, do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike the match, and oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
Good evening and welcome to the really big Barbecue Central Show. This is the show that talks about all things important in the world of barbecue and grilling. This show originating from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, Bomb City, USA, Cleveland, Ohio, the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I'm your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evening's live fire fun and frivolity show. If you want to jump in with the show or keep in contact, here's how you do all of that.
You can get in touch with the show by sending an email to Greg at BBQCentralShow.com. Follow us on all the social media channels at BBQ Central Show. And be sure to subscribe to the show podcast feed on your favorite podcast platform.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening in case you get the newsletter. By the way, you can sign up for the newsletter if you go to the main page of the website. And at the top of the navigation, there's a little menu item that says newsletter. Pop into that. And then just leave me an email address. I don't need anything other than that. And then every Tuesday afternoon around 3 p.m. Eastern, you will be gifted a newsletter that will give you the heads up and talking points with my guests later in that evening. And here we are coming up first out of the gate. It is the second Tuesday of a month. We missed him last month, but he is back and better than ever here. The creator of AmazingRibs.com and in the green room already. There he is, Meathead. So he's ready to rock and roll. Stay tuned for him in just a few moments. We're going to be talking about something that has been out. It's been out. Rarely is something on my radar first ahead of a lot of these other experts, but I can tell you with 100% assurity that KOJI has been on my radar well in advance of anybody else, long before anybody started talking about it. Why is that? Because it just so happens that Cleveland is the home of the KOJI master, who has been on the show before, who's also a master mushroom forager, Jeremy Umansky, who wrote KOJI Alchemy. I don't claim it to be a best-selling book, but as it relates to KOJI, it is the reference material. He had a co-writer with that, and I'm not going to remember the name of that man, which I apologize for, but I know Jeremy personally. I dine in his establishment regularly. I eat his wife's baked confections, not as regularly anymore since we're on the Do Wellness program. However, KOJI will be a topic of discussion here this evening. So if you were not headlong into it as I am, then you will get an introduction from Meathead, and then possibly, if there is further interest, I find time for Jeremy Umansky to rejoin the show, or perhaps we put him in a panel discussion with Meathead down the road and even talk further KOJI alchemyism. But tonight will be your introduction if it hasn't already crossed your radar. Long way to go for me to say Meathead shortly. Then, after Meathead, and we missed him last month as well, the contributing barbecue editor to Southern Living Magazine and the guy that hosts RobertFMoss.com's website and what I'll call now the former author of the Q Sheet, Robert Moss. He didn't say it's gone away, but I know what my inbox looked like, and it is as ghost as it comes when the Q Sheet is supposed to show up on my inbox like Saturday evenings. I remember reading. How often would you ever hear me see this? I remember reading. Like, I would never say that on purpose, but I remember reading the cue sheet and keeping up with what's happening in Robert's little corner of the world and the thing that he's covering, all this fun stuff. So Robert Moss will be back at it 35 past the first hour. That will neatly wrap the first hour, and then we will move to the second hour, where we will find, in an unprecedented move, coming out of the fourth Tuesday, not out of the bullpen, we're saving that for a show friend as well, but coming right out of the gate in the second hour, the Michigan Embedded Correspondent and the executive producer of the Best Moments of the Barbecue Central Show in 10 minutes or less, Jon Solberg. Why do we have Jon on? Well, last year, Doug Scheiding was on the longest-running Embedded Correspondent from Texas, or as Sam the Cooking Guy and I renamed both Doug and Rusty last week, the Dumbspondents. If you missed it, go back and check out the podcast from last week and hear why we call Rusty and Doug the Embedded Dumbspondents. Nevertheless, Doug is the longest-running Embedded Correspondent, and we did a whole segment with Doug about how he has grown and cultivated and acquired isn't the right, curated quite a successful Instagram account. And we talked about the pitfalls and what he has to do it in order to keep it as organic as possible, stay away from the bots, make sure nobody's questioning your integrity as a social media person, because that mattered to him. Some of you other schmucks, it doesn't matter. There's no integrity. It's all about the numbers. Grow at will. Grow at any cost necessary. Doesn't matter. But to Doug, it matters, and he laid out the whole thing last year, so go back and get that if you missed it. Jon will be talking to us about how he happened upon, within, I think it's Instagram, maybe it's Facebook, but I believe it's Instagram, this thing called Reels. It's blowing up like crazy. Facebook owns Instagram, now that I'm thinking about it. I might be wrong in that, but I believe I'm correct on that. Reels is something that's blowing up right now. Even the most savvy social media person is saying, if you are not taking full advantage of growing your Reels side of social media, you're missing out. Jon is fully invested in Reels. Not only that, Jon has figured out some way to get paid by Reels. What do we love here most of all? What did we nickname the show last year? The Barbecue Central Business Show. That's right, because we are capitalists. We want to make money, not at any and all costs, but at the right costs. And Jon has figured out a way to do money on Instagram. He's going to talk all about it. And closing the show tonight, a second season of what I call the podumentary. You might know him as a longtime Centralite, making his debut towards the tail end of the show last year, doing his brisket slathered in mayo binder, which is the food trend I and I alone started in 2022. Joe Martinez joins us. Joe Martinez has started a food truck out there in Texas, and we are going to start our first of 4, of course, quarterly segments with him, where we will dive really deep and uncover all of the dead bodies and all of the pitfalls and all of the monies and investments. If you have always thought my burning passion is to leave this daggum 9-to-5er and follow my passion as a barbecue trailer owner, well, boys, strap in, because Joe Martinez is going to give you 4 hugely in-depth segments as we get through 2023 that may inspire you to take it up or may slap you around with the reality of the situation and perhaps preventing something that would bankrupt you, lead you to the court of divorce, or both, who knows? And tonight, we are not getting into any business that involves the selling of barbecue. He's operating currently, but we're going to do it all the way from concept to the run-up to opening of day one. Just like we did with Rusty Monson last year, we're going to do it with Joe Martinez this year, and I think you will be happily surprised with the amount of information that Joe has told me he's going to share. And I said, Joe, look, this only works when you give out all of the information. I am absolutely going to be asking you the most minute and inquisitive questions on how you get started doing this and what the money situation likes, because that's what most people either are or are not taking into proper consideration. What's it going to cost you up front? Is it going to cost you something up front? Joe Martinez here to answer all those questions as we close the show out here this evening. Didn't even get to the open. How about that? Too busy promoting the rest of the show because this show is on fire already. As I had mentioned, Meathead is ready to go. And Robert Moss after him, Jon Solberg in the second hour, and closing it out, Joe Martinez. Since 1991, the National Barbecue and Grilling Association has been the voice of the barbecue and grilling industry by helping members network and learn from proven professionals. New owner and leader Cal Phelps looks to take the history of this organization and move it to new heights in 2023 and beyond. And they start that with their NBBQA annual conference, which is currently open for registration. You can go to nbbqa.org, and it's all right there on the main page to further check out. Now, if you're somebody in the business of barbecue and grilling and you are looking to stay on top of trends, market your business better, learn from the folks who have done it right, and continue to evolve in a market that is itself ever-changing, this is the conference you want to attend. It starts Wednesday, February 15th. It goes through Saturday, February 18th, and it will be held at the beautiful Wyndham Orlando Resort and Conference Center in the Celebration area of Orlando. Make your reservations now and then take advantage of being around the most successful people in the industry during those 4 days. Walk right up to such legends as Mo Cason or Dr. Barbecue, Mark Lambert, Tuffy Stone. The list goes on, and then ask them questions that you want to have answered. You might be surprised at how approachable they are and how open they are to help you succeed in the industry because, hey, it's our industry too. We want everybody to succeed and stay in it for as long as possible and be successful as possible. Once again, it's February 15th through the 18th in Orlando. Go to nbbqa.org for all the information, lodging, pricing. Don't miss out. And if you aren't a member yet, consider joining and have the access to videos and other info in case you aren't able to make trips later in the year. You can watch it all there. nbbqa.org. That's nbbqa.org. And we are back with Meathead right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
Welcome back. This portion of the show being brought to you by cookinpellets.com, your number one source for quality wood pellets for all your pellet-driven cookers. Visit cookinpellets.com for more information or to purchase. That's cookinpellets.com. I have given dates to Chris Becker to come on this show to talk about a number of things that are related to the pellet industry, but we will wait and see when he has time to join the show. My first guest tonight, of course, has created one of the most heavily trafficked barbecue and grilling websites on the face of the earth, a best-selling author, a Barbecue Hall of Famer, a Barbecue Central Show guest Hall of Famer, and we race to the hotline and welcome back our friend Meathead from AmazingRibs.com. Of course, Meathead, yes or no, in your expert sports opinion, because you are Paper Gator, will the QB for Georgia, Stetson Bennett Jr. III, be drafted in the NFL, or will he be undrafted?
Oh, he'll be drafted. It'll be down lower, but he'll be somebody's very talented backup, and who knows? He might. I mean, the guy has an arm, and he throws pinpoint passes, and he's a winner.
rounds
21,
rounds 1 through 4,
3 or something.
rounds 1 through 4, or later than that.
Maybe 4th.
Maybe 4th. All right, we'll go with that. I'm going
Hey,
undrafted
I
myself.
got a couple of things I want to get on.
All right.
Number 1, mayo.
Yes. Oh, I already have a question about mayo.
2016. It's in that book.
Not according to social media last year, Meathead. I started it. And as long as I keep saying it, it's truth. It doesn't.
In fact, I was interviewed by the LA Times on it in 2015.
Meathead, I have an alternative set of truths that happened in 2022, and we'll leave it at that. What's your other point?
The other one is everybody out there who thinks they know something about the internet is wrong. As of there is something earth-shaking that is about to happen to the internet that will upset millions, billions of business models.
Millions and billions of business models.
What's happening is in March.
Yes.
In March, Microsoft Bing is going to start using AI in their search results, and Google will not be far behind.
All right.
That means if you go to Google and you ask it, how do I use KOJI on a steak?
Yes.
It will not necessarily point you to a website that gives you the answer. Google will give you the answer. Google will use their AI to scrape the internet, and it will lift the info. And just like those little snippets that they're giving at the top of the page now, you will get Google will be stealing your business, and you had better find a better way to survive if you depend on Google traffic.
So is this going to be some other form? I have in my agenda to talk about ChatGPT. Is this a form of that then? Because that's artificial intelligence as well, and everybody's talking about that.
Yeah, ChatGPT is one of the best examples out there. And as you and I both know, we've played with it. It's cool. It does some good stuff, but it's not there yet. But it will be, and it will be soon. And Google has its own version. So I don't know what Bing is up to, but eventually, if you go to Google and ask it a question, it'll give you the answer.
Meathead, I have a question coming from Dennis in Colorado. It's probably a month and a half old at this point, but he says, "Hey, Greg, I sent you a video of a chef that is comparing oil versus mayo used on asparagus. I thought this was kind of interesting. Thought maybe you could ask Meathead on an upcoming segment to elaborate more on its use." Here's what I'm seeing, Meathead. You claim through reference and actual fact that you started talking about mayo. I claim I started it last year, so we're at odds. Nevertheless, what we can both agree on is that somehow or another, Mayohead is becoming all of a sudden a much bigger thing to use on the outsides of things. You put it on the inside of a hamburger, use it in a recipe, this and that and the other thing. But for whatever reason now, it does seem to be availing itself much more readily on social media. Here's Dennis asking about rubbing it on some asparagus before you put it on a grill, or at least some chef doing some type of comparison. So this is just an oil that can perhaps hold rub better.
Yeah, I think that, for many, many years, barbecue enthusiasts have been putting mustard on meats to help hold down their rubs. If you look at mustard, that is the grocery store version in a jar, it's mostly or both with a little bit of mustard powder in it. To see how weak it is, all you got to do is taste Chinese mustard, which is a lot stronger. And if you want to make your own, you go get Coleman's powder mustard and mix it with a lot of water, and boy, that'll blow your head off. But there's not a lot of flavor in the mustard. It's just to glue down the spices and herbs. Now, some people moved to ketchup, to oil, to mayonnaise. The bottom line is they don't impart much flavor. In fact, I have for many years been just using water. I'll get a slab of ribs. I'll go over the sink. I'll get my hands a little wet. I'll pat the ribs with my wet hands, and I'll just sprinkle the rub on. I just want to hold the rub on there. The oil is not going to conduct more energy. Most of it drips off. Same thing for the mayo. Mayo does have egg and some acid in there, vinegar or lemon juice or something, but they're not substantial flavor. Just like when you spritz with apple juice, the apple flavor is so dilute, it's not going to impact the flavor. You want to get a lot of flavor on a piece of meat, use spices, herbs, sauce. That'll put a lot of flavor on it. These fluids, liquids, they're not much flavor. I don't know what the result of that test was with asparagus. I'd be interested in seeing it. I doubt it makes much difference. One of the neat things about mayo is it's pretty good at helping fish release from grill grates. Fish, as you know, is the bane of anybody who grills. It just really sticks, and finding a way to get it to let loose is really tricky. And mayo is pretty good at it.
I've told this story before on the show, but the show has gone on for years and years and almost decades at this point. There's a lot of new people on the instant chat here in YouTube. The other thing that I know about mayo is what somebody told me from a very successful fast food chain called Arby's. I had many, many years ago, right when that their brisket smokehouse sandwich was coming out for the very first time. It might have been 2014 or maybe even before that. I had the guy on that came up with the recipe, and I took him to task. I said, hey, the one thing that sticks out to me, aside from cheese, which is weird on a brisket sandwich, but it's fast food, so cheese evidently has to go on everything. It's on fish sandwiches, you name it. I said, I don't understand the mayo. And he said, well, did you taste the mayo? I said, no, but I saw it on there. And he said, right. And here's why. Because the mayo will now accept the flavor of the brisket. And when you're eating that brisket sandwich, the mayo is coating the top of your mouth and all sides of your mouth, and it's giving you a much more briskety feel and taste, and we don't have to use as much meat on the sandwich in order to satisfy that a brisket flavor that you might be looking for. So it was almost done as, I don't want to say cost-cutting measure, but certainly allowing you to continue to have a beef brisket flavored sandwich, but doing it with less meat because the mayo is helping intensify the brisket flavor that's already on there. How about that?
Mayo on before cooking?
As he's making the sandwich, you take the bottom part of the bun, slather it with mayo, and then build the sandwich up from there. Yeah. So that was
mayo
new to me.
Yeah, I mean, we all love to put mayo on egg salad, tuna salad. It does help flavor. Arby's has been using their horsey sauce for years, which I think is mayo based.
Yes. Tonight's subject, Meathead, is something again that I had said in the open has been well on my radar for years. It's called KOJI. There you have the book right there, KOJI Alchemy. Jeremy Umansky, co-writer. Who's the other guy on there? I forget his name.
Rick Shih.
Rick Shih.
Shih.
Yeah.
It's a very nice book. It is very advanced and technical.
Oh yeah.
I'm writing as you know, I'm writing a book. My deadline is rapidly approaching, and I have a little section in the book on using KOJI, and I've been fiddling with it, and it's very interesting. And I think I have managed, as I like to do, to distill it down to some of the basics.
Where did you find out about KOJI?
I don't recall specifically, but
there's been in the last couple of years, would you say?
Pardon?
Was it in the last couple of years, or have you known about it much longer?
I think when I went to Japan, I learned a little bit about it when I saw them making miso. Miso is made with KOJI. So is soy sauce. It's a fungus, Aspergillus oryzae, and people go, ooh, a fungus on my steak, but let's not forget that mushrooms are a fungus, and and cheese is made many cheeses are made with fungi. Yeast is a fungus, and without yeast, there's no wine or beer. So it's nothing to be grossed out by. What people have been doing is they've been putting a form of KOJI, and I'll talk about the different forms in a minute, on beef, on steaks. And you leave it on for a week or so, and the fungus alters. It's loaded with enzymes. It's loaded with enzymes, and those enzymes really do a job on proteins and starches. And it alters the flavor of the surface of the meat and a little bit down below. And people say it resembles aged beef, dry aged beef.
Yeah.
And that's how it caught on. And I think resembles is the operative word. It's not exactly the same, but it's interesting. It gives it an interesting character, a flavor that you wouldn't necessarily identify as beef right away. The raw form, I've got it right here, is a package here. It's like a rice cake. It's dry and hard inside, and these are white rice that have been inoculated with the fungus and then dried out. And you can buy this on Amazon.
You just search KOJI.
You got to search for KOJI, and it's all in Japanese.
Is it shipped from Japan?
Pardon?
Is it shipped from Japan?
Yeah, it's from Japan.
All right.
No, it's shipped from Amazon's warehouse. But
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of Japanese and Asians in this country that work with KOJI, and people do make their own miso. I'm just pulling up. I think I can get you the brand name that I use.
I can probably just go down to Jeremy's restaurant and he can give me a pound of KOJI. He's probably got to buy the truckload.
Not all your listeners. It's Miyako KOJI. And it's KOJI, or called KOJI rice. And what you do with it is you put it in a jar with warm water and leave it sit at room temperature for a week. And you get, I don't know how well you can see this.
Oh, sure, we can see it.
But it's got the rice and the KOJI in there.
Looks gross.
And, this is the stuff you slather. Now, some people just take the rice and crumble it up and put it on the beef. When you inoculate it with water like this, you can keep it in the fridge for weeks. It becomes something called shio KOJI. Shio KOJI is different than KOJI rice. It's KOJI that has been blossomed with water and allowed to grow. And you can actually buy shio KOJI. Here's a bottle of it. This too is available on Amazon.
All right.
And it's labeled shio KOJI. It's more expensive to buy it like this, but it's all ready to go. This stuff, you just pour it over your steak. And this is cool. For my wife's birthday, we went to a restaurant that is experimenting. You know, it's one of these experimental restaurants and they were putting shio KOJI on butter.
Really?
And they served some beautiful bread with KOJI inoculated butter, and it's effing awesome. It's just it becomes kind of cheese-like. It's like butter flavor times 2, and it's really rich, almost a little Parmesan flavor. I just absolutely fell in love with it, and I've made it using this stuff and my homemade stuff, and it's really cool. And you can use it on chicken, turkey, steaks. It alters, because of the enzymes, it alters the flavor profile. And usually the results are pretty good.
Does it give you a chart of how long you want to keep that stuff on steak in order to replicate, let's say, a 45 or a 90-day dry-aged steak taste?
There are no, I have not seen anything definitive. The general rule of thumb that people who've been playing with steak is in the 7 to 10 day range. But I think you can push it further or less. You know, it's like sous vide. There's rules of thumb when you're going to sous vide, say, beef ribs, 145 or 155. Well, it's a personal preference, how the texture suits you. 24 hours or 48 hours. Again, it's a preference. You start and you experiment and you find out what suits your taste.
When you do the butter, you had mentioned all sorts of different flavors that you like, but texture-wise, is it just like butter, or does it also
like
cheese
butter.
up?
No, just like butter. And it takes about a week, and it's just awesome. If you want to play with it, go to Amazon and just buy the Shio Koji.
How much?
It's easier than
What do you think?
buying the
How much is
Koji
that
rice.
stuff?
I don't recall.
Is it significantly more expensive in your right hand, though, than in your left hand?
Well, yeah, I think so. I think buying the jar is more expensive than the rice cake.
Sure.
This is Koji rice. This is Shio Koji. I don't recall. You can look them up, but I do believe Shio Koji is significantly more than buying the rice. It only takes a week or 10 days to turn the rice into Shio Koji, but I was in a hurry to try it. And I tell you, I just absolutely love what it does to butter. And I'm going to start playing with other things with it, like, burger meat and stuff.
Going totally off topic, I had Sam the cooking guy on last week, and at some point in our discussion, he just tossed out the fact. So last year, he got this real big dry aging unit, and they've been dry aging, big sides of beef right along here. But then all of a sudden, he drops this little tidbit on me and says, yeah, we, for one of our upcoming videos, we did dry aged chicken. So they had a couple whole chickens, stuck them in the dry ager for 2 weeks. I think it was 14 days to the exact. And said they were some of the most delicious chickens to both him and the production guys that are shooting and tasting along with the videos. He said it was great. You ever heard anything about dry-aged chickens? They looked absolutely terrible.
I have not. I've played with dry aging, but not chicken. As you probably know, Jim Compart of Compart Pork dry ages some of his pork, and I've actually written him to talk to him about the process. But there's in Sherman Oaks, California. There's a place called The Joint. Sherman Oaks, California. It's just north of LA. There's a place called The Joint, and he has these giant steak aging lockers, and he's aging fish. And I've written a little bit about that in the book too. People who taste that fish do backflips. People are getting a little wild out there.
Well, KOJI is the next thing that's going to absolutely rage. You are certainly confirming that. You're going to continue to play along with that. And for folks that are just tuning in tonight for the first time and aren't overly familiar with Meathead, you just need to go to AmazingRibs.com and see what this guy's all about. All right, one last thing before we go.
Some of this stuff is not on the website yet. It's in the book, which will be out in a year. But I'm just thinking, hey, let's try KOJI on mayonnaise.
Why not? Start a new trend. KOJI mayonnaise bindered brisket. It'll be the next huge trend.
I'll try it, and 2 years later, you'll claim you invented it.
That's right. Why not? It worked this time. It worked last time. It'll work this time around, no doubt. And again, it's AmazingRibs.com. We will see you in February, Meathead.
Yes, and by the way, just a quick apology for missing last month. I had a little medical issue that I was unable to attend, and I regret missing it.
We are happy to see you that you are back and better than ever, no doubt. Meathead, thank you. That's Meathead right there from AmazingRibs.com. So stop over there if you don't visit regularly and become that much more knowledgeable of a live fire person. Robert Moss is ready to go, and I will mention to you that Pits and Spits has the best looking, best cooking smokers and grills currently available on the market. Pits and Spits offers a full family of products, including traditional offset smokers, wood pellet grills, charcoal grills, travel grills, hybrid cookers, fire pits, and much more. Pits and Spits has been one of the only American fabrication shops that's focused on smokers and grills for almost 40 years. Why is that important? We're able to put an emphasis on quality and design, locally sourced material, and unmatched attention to detail. From the fully welded barrels to the heavy gauge steel, they bring both function and beauty to life. Pits and Spits builds every product with the intention that it's going to get passed down from generation to generation. Whether you're into competition barbecue or you want to take that backyard grilling and barbecue game to the next level, there is a product for you. Check them out at Pits and Spits. That's PITTS ANDSPITTS, pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central That's pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central. And then as you accumulate up to $500 or more at checkout, use promo code BBQ Central for a free spice pack. That's right, BBQ Central at checkout for a free spice pack when you get $500 or more in the cart. pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central. That's pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central. We are back with Robert Moss right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And we thank Meathead for joining us last segment. To this portion being brought to you by Fireboard. Monitor up to 6 different temperatures simultaneously. Connect to Wi-Fi for cloud-based monitoring, or connect via Bluetooth if you have Alexa or the Google Assistant in your home. You're in luck because Fireboard is fully integrated with both. Find out more by visiting fireboard.com or call 816-945-2232. My next guest is the contributing barbecue editor for Southern Living Magazine, an accomplished author. He's also a restaurant critic where he's at locally. We pray for the hotline and welcome back Robert Moss. Robert, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Greg?
Absolutely fabulous. Happy New Year to you. And as 2022 ends, 2023 begins, there already seem to be no shortage of trends, either those being predicted that will happen at some point over the course of this year or through social media. It seemed right as the hour of 2023 hit, there was a brand new social media trend that was happening all over the place that we'll get to here in just a second. But let's first concentrate on what Meathead and I seem to be butting heads with, which was my mayo binder trend at the end of last year. At this stage, seeing the meteoric rise on such platforms as TikTok and Instagram, and my very public fight with somebody named Dick Paste, who also claimed credit for it, but I beat him down maliciously. Are we validated yet that I have created the mayo bindered trend of 2022?
Well, while you were talking to me, Dad, I went to my shelf and pulled the book off.
Don't go to the reference material.
Yeah. Well, I just want to gesture to it. He was gesturing to the reference material. I just want to point out that page 107, the fish problem, Meathead has one line on mayo, and it's one of the many options that you could use to fix notoriously sticky fish, as he later referenced. And it says coat the fish with mayo, which is about 1/3 oil after seasoning it. So, yeah, he talked about putting mayo on barbecue in the book, but can that really lead to a major TikTok trend?
No way. I mean, I was
as much as I like Meathead and I like going to the book, you know, I can't really say that book from 2015 sort of sat there in the culture and it suddenly exploded in 2022. There must have been something else that sparked it.
No doubt about it. Robert Moss joining us here on the show. RobertFMoss.com is his website. The trend that hit as the year turned was this butter candle. Something that, you saw, and is it something that you would even consider attempting? Or having multiple around the house in case the power went out?
Well, I mean, I saw it in the sense that you had mentioned it, and I think on your last show, and I Googled it and found a couple TikTok videos. I'm not sitting there scrolling TikTok day in and day out, so it wasn't something that was high on my radar screen. It seems like if you say butter candle in February, I bet no one will know what you're talking about. Do you remember butter boards? Are those even a thing?
They were really big last year, of course.
Butter. Yeah, I don't know if anybody's even doing that anymore. I think TikTok trends are interesting. I was actually talking to Jess Pryles, a friend of the show, about sort of the nature of the internet and TikTok, and I think she sort of put it in a good way. You know, someone who makes a living, you know, very, very dependent upon the internet. You sort of have two channels. You've got social media that people are turning to for instruction. Yeah, they're watching videos, learning how to do things, and then you have stuff that people are just scrolling through and they look at it as fun and they keep going. I would have to put the butter candle in that category. Not tempted to try it myself, but if you want to do it, yeah, more power to you.
These are my trend picks for 2023. Electric grills coming to the market in a very big way, legitimately from legitimate manufacturers. One or two hit towards, well, one was out pretty early last year, but I don't really think it caught a lot of steam until we were getting ready to turn the year. That was Charbroil's Edge. I believe Weber has one that is either being currently locked down with patents and other forms and filings, and will be brought to market at some point. But there are other big manufacturers out there who are going to be unleashing full-size electric grills into the market. So I think that's something that's going to be hitting in 2023 that people are going to at least seriously consider adding to the arsenal. I think we're past the time where people are going to get rid of one cooker in lieu of another. They're just starting to add or accumulate. Back in the day when I started doing just barbecue forums, we used to call it MCS, or multiple cooker syndrome. And this is kind of where we're progressing now. So somebody might think about adding an electric cooker, or if you're in an apartment or something that doesn't allow an open flame, this would certainly be a option for you. The other thing that I think, and this is more of the butter candle trend, is I think we're going to start seeing a lot more smoked meatloaf hitting the social media channels. This might seem novel. However, this was really big when I first got into barbecue back in 2003. People were like, "How have you ever smoked a meatloaf? And here's recipes. You put it on parchment paper, this, that, and the other thing." And it didn't go away necessarily, but I'm starting to see a rise in interest in smoked meatloaf all of a sudden through some of the social media platforms. So what are you looking to see, or what are you potentially seeing as trends in 2023?
I think both of yours are interesting. So let me react to those first. On the electric grill, what's driving that? Do you think it's more the marketing that's driving it, or more that it's filling a need that people have to? Is it simpler than a pellet, cheaper than a pellet grill, but doesn't require all the mess of wood? Or is it,
I don't think I can tell you that, especially with some of the manufacturers of pellet cookers out there, you can get, I wouldn't say a decent pellet cooker, but you can get a pellet cooker for $500, $600. And depending on the manufacturer, it could have a fairly decent capacity on it. The Charbroil Edge full-size electric grill is, I think, $650 or $700. Yeah. So it's not necessarily inexpensive. It's not as much as a mid-size Weber gas grill at this point, a Genesis, which is going to be $1,000 or $1,100 with some of the upgrades that they've made to the latest version of the Genesis cooker. But this isn't a cheap introduction. I don't know where the impetus is here. I've never heard people clamoring for a full-size electric cooker, but it has to have come from somewhere.
Yeah. I doubt they just introduced it for random reasons. I'm a little skeptical on that one just because I don't see the niche that it fills. Like, it seems like there's already stuff out there that fills that niche, whether you want high-end or you want easy, set it and forget it or whatever. But we'll see. You may be right on that one. I do agree with you on the meatloaf, primarily because I've seeing that a lot more these days. I see it on restaurant menus. I see a lot of people doing it in specials. I see it on social media. So definitely there's more interest in meatloaf. And I think that's actually tied into sort of my big trend for 2023. And it may be sort of like the mayo binder. This may be me trying to make it happen, because I like to. But I do think my big prediction is that 2023 is a year that brisket jumps the shark in barbecue. And again, being a Carolinian, proponent of whole hog, that this could be just me, talking my book, if you will. But I just feel it building. That there's so many restaurants now opening from Seattle to Jacksonville to Minnesota, that everyone's serving brisket. I'm starting to feel like the pit masters are getting tired of it. The ones even in Texas, people are saying, well, everyone does brisket, everybody does good brisket. How can you stand out from the crowd? I think meatloaf is sort of in that vein, in the sense that people are looking for something new and different. That if you can't just show pictures of brisket on Instagram anymore, everybody has a picture of a brisket. It's almost like table stakes. It's like having a napkin or something. So I do think that we'll see some interesting new things. I'm particularly bullish on on not just pork in general, which I think is great, but I'm particularly bullish on beef back ribs. The big prime, beef, plate ribs had their moment a while back, and it's actually sort of started off as pit masters, trying to sort of separate themselves from brisket. Like, what can we do that's something even bigger than brisket? A bigger exploration. I had dinner the other night at Rancho Lewis here in Charleston, which is John Lewis's new Tex-Mex restaurant. John Lewis has Lewis Barbecue, was formerly at La Barbecue in Austin, and cooked with Aaron Franklin back in the trailer days. So a Texas brisket master, but his second restaurant has been a Tex-Mex restaurant that sort of pays homage. He grew up in El Paso, so it's sort of the food he grew up with. But he's doing these mesquite smoked back ribs. You can get a whole rack of them. It takes about 3 people to take it down. But boy, are they delicious. They're tender. They're smoky. It's so much more interesting than brisket. As much as I like the prime plate beef rib, that tends to be, well, super expensive to begin with. But also that big first bite, you don't want to keep eating it. So I think, things like back ribs, smoked meatloaf is another good one. I see lots of people doing things like beef cheeks these days. Trying to do anything new. So that's my big 2023 prediction, and also perhaps trying to make it happen, which is enough of the brisket. What else can we put on a pit that's good to eat?
Robert Moss joining us here on the show. So you are a expert Southerner, at least to me, from somebody that is rarely in the South. Let's have a little bit of a language lesson here. I was doing some reading and studying up here and came across the word cookout, and then further along in the article, the word barbecue gets thrown out. Now, in the very early stages of this show, I was very opinionated on the words barbecue and grilling. Meathead and I's very first blow-up argument on the show was having diverging opinions on those particular words. And I said, no, they're two different cooking methods. This is what grilling means. This is what barbecue means. I've since chilled out because I've just gotten older and I probably don't care to have the same passion and zest to fight it. And I'm just happy if anybody's into one side or the other. But when you refer to the words cookout and barbecue, are these synonymous terms or are they independent?
Well, I think it depends somewhat where you are. But as and actually I used to write a whole column on Southern icons for Serious Eats, where I said the whole premise is I'm explaining Southern food to Yankees, and so I'm explaining what it means. If you're in the South, and it, words don't have a inherent meaning of their own. It means what people hear and they think when you say it. And I already say, okay, if you're in the South and you say we're having a cookout, come over and bring something. In the South, you're going to think, okay, they're making probably hot dogs, hamburgers, maybe getting crazy and putting some chicken, but it's going to be on a grill. It's going to be a hot heat. You're grilling on a kettle or something like that. If you say we're having a barbecue, no one's going to think you're in South Carolina, at least, that you're going to go eat hamburgers and hot dogs. You're going to probably have something that's been cooking all night. You probably have a bunch of sweaty, smelly men who've been up, drinking bourbon all night long, who are going to roll out a pork shoulder or pigs or ribs or something like that. So in the South, at least, if you talk about an event, a cookout is one thing, a barbecue is another, and you would never say, come on over this weekend, we're having a cookout, we're doing a whole hog. That just doesn't ring true. Yeah. Now, if you're in New Jersey, New York, and you say we're having a barbecue, come on over, then probably they would be the guests would be very surprised if they showed up and you had a giant hog cooker out back with a whole hog on it. They would expect a grill with some weenies on it and maybe mushrooms and things like that.
So when they're saying barbecue in the North, do you think they're referring to the vessel that they're cooking on versus the food that they're going to be presenting?
They are referring to a couple different things. They're referring to a barbecue. A barbecue is an event. It's when you're cooking out, and at the barbecue there might be a barbecue, which would be the grill on which you're putting things. And Meathead and I have actually had some of that argument going back and forth. The interesting thing is that those if you go back just a century in history, those two actually the cookout or the barbecue, they sort of evolved out of the same thing. What we call the backyard barbecue today really came about in the 1920s. Inspired, it was a bunch of New York magazines like Home and Garden and magazines like that started running these features saying a barbecue is a great event to have. And they actually referenced these large outdoor barbecues they'd have in California out west. And they said you can actually create a similar version in your backyard. you can dig a little pit in your backyard, and instead of cooking a whole pig like they might do at a Southern barbecue or a California barbecue, you can put some, smaller cuts on it. That gradually, got built up into brazier grills and then kettle grills and everything else. So the barbecues actually split. And originally in the 1920s, a barbecue, there was no such thing as grilling in the backyard. A barbecue was cooked in a hole in the ground, but they diverged, and we've been fighting about it ever since.
Robert, we didn't visit in December, but during our time in November, you were just weeks away from the second edition of the Holy Smokes Low Country Barbecue Festival. So we take a last couple minutes here of the segment, recap that event, and let me know what you thought of it and the other folks that were in charge of getting it organized and helping it come off.
Yeah, I think the event was even a bigger. We expected it to be successful, and it was even a bigger success than we anticipated. We did sell out, which was a big deal. We actually sold out the morning of the event, right before we opened the gates, and which is great because it means we're going to be able to really create a big or give another big donation this year to Hogs for the Cause as well as to Ronald McDonald House. So that was a big success. We were in a new venue this year. We were at Riverfront Park in North Charleston, which is a beautiful park. It used to be the Navy base in Charleston. It's been since transformed. It's still in progress being transformed into a big park and development area, but it's overlooking the Cooper River. And unlike the first year, we had a lot more room this year. So everything was spread out a lot more. We had a little problem with lines the first year. This year, the lines were very manageable. The Texas Village, as Texas is wont to do, had a little bit of a line, but we timed it. I don't think anybody waited more than 10 minutes, even in Texas, which is a miracle. You can't do that in Texas. Most everywhere else, people moved in very quickly. It was very spread out. We had a lot of room for kids to run around and all that kind of stuff. So a big success. We did have a fourth village we added this year. We added a coastal village. So we had 4 different sort of styles of barbecue, so a little bit different variety and everything else. So all told, I think it was a great event. The weather was great. That's the one thing you can't control. No rain, 60-degree day, beautiful weather. So really went about as well as we could have asked for.
Are we thinking about the third edition at this point?
Absolutely. We are already booked for November of this year now, 2023.
Yep.
So we'll be doing it again. We'll be back at Riverfront Park. It was such a great venue. We'll do it again. We're actually meeting next week to sort of do our official debrief from this year and sort of talk about format changes and things like that. So we don't know what we might do differently. We'll build on success, but we try to do something new every year, and we encourage anybody. It's a great November is one of the best months to come to Charleston. So if you want to sort of pencil that in your calendar, we'll be doing it again, and we'll next time I'm on, I can probably give you more specifics about dates and how to find us and everything else.
Robert Moss is joining us here. You can see him the second Tuesday of every month, 35 past the first hour. Go to robertfmoss.com for more information. Robert, always appreciate the time, and we'll see you in February.
All right. Thanks so much, Greg. See you then.
You got it. There he is. Robert Moss right there. Again, the website, robertfmoss.com. Check out what he's up to. And as he said, no specific dates yet as they do the postmortem on the second annual Low Country Boil, or Low Country Barbecue. But Charleston's great to visit in November. We will look to wrap the first hour in just a second. Let's talk about Big Papa Smokers, the one-stop online shop for all things barbecue, a curated selection of only the best outdoor cooking and grilling supplies, getting you on the path to better barbecue results in no time. Everything at Big Papa Smokers has been Pitmaster approved by Sterling Big Papa Ball himself, from the award-winning rubs and sauces, the American-made grills and smokers. They have something for every type of barbecue cook. Popular flavors of their rubs: Sweet Money, Cattle Prod, Cash Cow, Double Secret Steak Rub, all proven winners. 13 perfectly balanced flavors to transform ordinary meals into extraordinary. They also own Granny's Barbecue Sauce, so if you're looking for a new go-to sauce that will please everybody, Granny's traditional yet powerful flavor reminds us of why we fell in love with barbecue in the first place. Great all by itself, or if you're looking for a base sauce that you can further trick out and make your own, it's great for that too. Aside from the premium selection of rubs and sauces, they're offering a fine selection of cookers. If you're looking for a versatile smoker that's easy to use, check out that Mac 2-Star General Pellet Cooker. Big Papa Smokers, the exclusive Mac dealer, even offering special packages. If you're not sure of what grill you need, call them. Ask questions. They'll make sure you're headed in the right direction. 877-828-0727. That's 877-828-0727. Or shop their website at bigpapasmokers.com. That's BIGPOPPA smokers.com. Big Papa Smokers, proud sponsor of this show. And we will be back to wrap it up here in the first hour right after this. Stick around. Be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Continuing to produce incredibly mediocre content in an exceptionally professional way. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
And we thank Robert Moss for joining us last segment. Once again, his website, robertfmoss.com. I would tell you to go sign up for the Q sheet, but apparently that's not something that's happening regularly, so don't sign up for that. Meathead is also now emailing me after he just pulled the segment about 30 minutes ago or so, making sure that he is telling me that he's the one that started all the mayo stuff. Yes, Meathead, yeah, of course. That's right. Get Meathead's book. It was very popular. And now he's working on a second book that will be out next year, according to him. Remember, listen so we can all mark that down and then make sure in a year from now, make sure that book is out. All right, we are pointing to the second hour. Looking through instant chat here. Let's see. A lot of people in for Joe Martinez. So he's got an audience building. That's great. Here's a message from Tiger McCool Barbecue Company and Fire Cups at Instagram. Fire Cups at Instagram. John Miller, RIP. Leprechaun TV. Joe needs to come in like stone cold. Absolutely. Agree with that. Joe Martinez will be joining us in the second hour, talking about that food trailer. All right, stand by. We'll come back for the second hour, and we'll do a lot more hijinks and shenanigans. Check around. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Brisket, the barbecue wizard, and you're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Bye-bye!
Happy to have you aboard here for the really big barbecue show.
Boing.
We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Hit me!
Fine, how's it going?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
Boing.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle. Charbono! It's all about the charbono, dude.
Succulent fish. What?
He ate 2 feet for wieners.
Oh, listen, Lavernius, shake your face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
We have top men working on it right now. Top men.
And just like that, we are into the second hour. It's the Barbecue Central Show. We do it live here on Tuesdays from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. It's also being recorded for podcast, hour number 1. You will see early tomorrow morning. Hour number 2 will be on Thursday, and we'll talk about Friday here in just 1 second. Still to come on the show this evening in about 13 minutes from now, Jon Solberg, Michigan Embedded Correspondent and executive producer of the best moments of the Barbecue Central Show. In 10 minutes or less, we'll be up to talk about Instagram and how he's been able to make some money from that. And then closing out the show this evening, longtime Centralite Joe Martinez from Smokin Joe's Pit Barbecue will do his first installment of 4, a second season podumentary of what it's like to be living the life of a barbecue trailer operator, owner, business owner, small business owner, all that stuff. So look forward to speaking with both Jon and Joe Martinez. We say good evening to those of you watching this show tonight through one of our video streaming platforms. You can go to Facebook and Twitch /BBQ Central Show to watch. You can also watch via YouTube /RD Rempe. There is a poll this evening that is simply this: have you ever messed with KOJI? Meathead and I talked about KOJI in the first hour, and currently 100% of you are saying no.
Get that big stuff out of here.
Nobody has messed with KOJI yet. Maybe because you don't know where to get it. Maybe because you just have zero interest in messing around with KOJI. Maybe both of those. But evidently it's wholly available on Amazon, whether it be through the rice that you might have to reconstitute or inoculate, I think Meathead said. Or you can get the other version, which costs more, but it's ready to go right out of the gate. So however you see fit, if you are interested in the KOJI or if you're just learning about it, you want to give it a try. Again, Meathead references the fact that if you are into the dry aging flavor of steak, but you don't have a dry age machine, or you just don't want to dedicate that amount of time, depending on what your level of preference is on dry aged, you can get this, was it Shohi KOJI, put it on top, let it go for 3 days, 7 days, 10 days instead of 30, 90, 100, and you can get a similar flavor profile. Not sure what it does to the tenderness. We should probably have Jeremy Umansky back on the show so we can dig a little bit further into the whole KOJI alchemy. But if you don't want to wait around for that and you just want to give it a whirl, go ahead onto Amazon and try from there. I would say that this is the point where we also welcome everybody in from Clubhouse, but that was not working this evening. Club Deck was screwing around on the highest level, so I wasn't even going to mess with that during the live stream this evening. So if you were trying to get in through Clubhouse, I apologize there, but that is not going to be happening this evening. Coming up on the best moments of the Barbecue Central Show in 10 minutes or less this coming Friday, episode 264, taking you back to January 7th, 2014. On that show was none other than Barbecue Hall of Famer and Barbecue Central Show guest Hall of Famer, Dr. Barbecue Ray Lampe. And during this particular time, we were talking about fast food barbecue that was really taking off at that point, early 2014, late 2013, but especially in that early 2014 time frame, it seemed like every fast food joint was trying to bring out some kind of barbecue on their menu. In fact, Ray was actually in semi-formal negotiations with Burger King as a potential spokesperson for whatever barbecue they were attempting to bring to market at that time. It ends up falling through in the end. However, that wasn't the gem of the segment. If I can properly set this up, I don't want to ruin it on Friday, but just to give you a little proper setup, we were in the new house at that point. There was a brand new studio. One of the first new shows happening in that studio, January 2014. But what had changed from the old house to the new house was stairs. The old house was a ranch style, so no stairs anywhere. The new house had no less than 2 staircases, one going upstairs to the bedrooms and living quarters up there, bathroom, what have you. And then the second set of stairs leading down into the basement where the studio was. And I'm mid-question with Ray as this interview was happening. And one of those kids of mine falls down the stairs.
Get that big stuff out of here.
Now, you can't hear it coming over the mic because I'm in a treated studio room and I have the proper settings on my microphone, so you don't hear it come through the open mic. But I remember what sounded like a sound of horror. Full-fledged falling, like stones being tossed down the stairs. And all I could think of that someone was hurt. So I leave mid-interview, almost mid-question. And then Ray, being the professional that he is, takes a few beats, waits to see if I'm coming back, and then decides to just take the reins, understands I wasn't coming right back, picks the show up, runs with it until I get back, and then to his credit, made an extremely deft handoff back to me as I return, so much so that if I wouldn't have said anything to Ray about why I actually left, because it seemed really odd, all of a sudden you just see me leave the picture like a bat out of hell. But through audio, you never would have known, and you would have never given it a second thought. You just would have heard me say, oh, hold on, but then that was it. So this is one of those gems that Jon mines out and that I had almost forgotten about. So in no particular order, thanks to Ray for keeping the show going, as I just left him on his own without any heads up back in 2014. And then Jon, years later, finding this show, mining it back out, 8-year-old segment, and bringing it back to present day. Well done, both of you, and shows why both of you are guest Hall of Famers as well. So if you don't want to see a guest or a segment get lost in those archives that I mentioned, email Jon and let him know what you would like to hear. Jon at thebbqcentralshow.com. That's Jon at thebbqcentralshow.com. Email from a listener. Hi, Greg. Love the show. Do you have any idea when the Hartville Barbecue Weekend will be in 2023? I know it's usually in September, and you are the MC. Have you been contacted? And can you confirm a date? Thanks, Fred in Redmond, Oregon. Fred, I have to ask, are you just interested in getting the recap on that following Tuesday? Or are you going to be coming in from Redmond, Oregon? That's what I want. Fred, are you coming in? I have reached out to Steve at Hartville Hardware, the main guy in charge, asked him, and he said at this particular point, freshly into 2023, he doesn't have any specific dates. He does know it's going to be September, but Hartville learned in the second year they will not make a firm date commitment until the American Royal has set their weekend. They will not compete with that because a lot of folks will miss the Hartville Hardware instead of going to the American. They will miss Hartville Hardware and go to the American Royal. They don't want to compete with that. So as soon as I hear something on that, Fred, I will let you know. And then in the meantime, Fred, let me know if you're asking because you're trying to make plans to come out to Hartville and see this thing in person. That's what I want to know about. Wow, that would be insane. That would be insane. All right, we have, I don't know if my cue worked here or not. What does this say? This is back from Tiger McCool Company and Fire Cups. Lep, you're both in Cleveland. This cat should want to hang with you. I do. I don't know who Lep is, but I absolutely do want to hang with Lep. Yes, sir. So, look at here. Lep is saying he's from Cleveland, too. All right. Leprechaun TV. So, Lep, you're a Cleveland guy. I'm a Cleveland guy. I don't know if you're a West Side guy, because if you're West Side, that is not the best side. East Side is the best side, of course. We have all of the greatest eateries, watering holes, cigar lounges. Well, maybe the West Side has better cigar lounges. Robusto and Breyer is the premier tobacconist, in my opinion, anywhere in the greater metropolitan region. Jon Solberg is ready to go. So, let me talk to you quickly about Primo Grills. What do we love about ceramic cookers? We love that they're fuel efficient. We love that they can achieve low and slow temperatures for barbecue meats. Yeah. We love that they get rip-roaring hot for high-temperature grilling of steaks and other thin cuts, but what's missing in the everyday lineup of ceramic cookers? The real ability to do true two-zone cooking. Two-zone cooking is important to both professional and backyard cooks alike. It's the easiest way to manage a fire and cook with confidence. However, getting a two-zone fire in a round ceramic cooker is not very realistic. Why? Because it's not round. Or because it's round. Enter Primo Grill, their game-changing oval design. This shape gives you the ability to execute a two-zone setup that you desire. It also gives you the other ceramic grill benefits as well. You can cook 60 different ways on a Primo cooker. 60. They have the lift hinge. They have the revamped dampers on the top and bottom. They have the Primo Grill rotisserie accessory. Also, the Primo Grill pizza accessory. Come on. You gotta be kidding me. Here's the bottom line. Best ceramics in the business? Yes. Patented technology? Yes. True two-zone cooking capabilities? Yes. Multiple sizes in the shape of an oval? You bet. Only sold through dealers. So, while you can peruse their website, primogrill.com, find a dealer near you, visit them in person, see which oval size would fit you best, get educated by the dealer, and then you're off. You're going to have success right out of the gate because you're getting educated. Primogrill.com. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram as well. That's primogrill.com. We are back with Jon Solberg right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And we welcome you back. This portion of the show being brought to you by Pit Barrel Cooker, the most unbelievable outdoor cooking device on the planet, currently available in 3 sizes, a host of accessories. Whether you're a beginner or professional, it doesn't matter. Definitely a cooker you want to add to the arsenal. PitBarrelCooker.com is the website, and tell them the Barbecue Central Show sent you. A ton of email and instant chat coming in about Leprechaun TV. Lep is the goat host, so not only is he a leprechaun, evidently he is the host of a goat show. I like goats. You have a goat farm? Maybe we can do some goat milk, goat cheese. I'm a big fan of goat cheese, so I love the goat host. That would be neat. He's also a guy who has nice nipples and can belly dance like a mofo. All right, that's right up my alley. If it's two things that I require on any man or woman, A, nice nipples, and 2, dancing like a mofo. It's paramount. Paramount. My first guest in the second hour is the executive producer of the extremely popular The Best Moments of the Barbecue Central Show in 10 Minutes or Less podcast that sees new episodes released each Friday morning. You can also see him the fourth Tuesday of the month in the second hour during the Embedded Correspondent segment. He's the official Michigan agent, and tonight we're talking about his latest experience on social media, Instagram officially, and how he is making money at it. Interested? Yes, you are, because you love money just like I love money. We, once again, welcome my pal, Jon Solberg. Jon, question number 1 of this evening. You going to take part in the butter candle trend of 2023?
No, I'm only going to observe and record this phenomenon. I will not participate.
In 10 years from now, we could look back on your research and documentation and see how long this lasted. Are you preparing 1 or 2 whole pages to track this?
I think this is going to be a half pager. It's going to be all of a half pager. It's going to be
Jon,
a flash in the candle.
Last year, I see what you did there. Last year, Doug came on the show and talked about his process of growing what is really quite a prolific Instagram account. But tonight, we're going to do it with you. But it's a little different thing altogether. We aren't going to be talking about your curation of 20,000, 40,000, 100,000 followers and how you got there the right way. Instead, we're talking about Jon making money using reels. So we might be more of the same mindset on social media stuff, necessary evil versus really having a passion for it. You certainly see a value in it. When did reels become a thing in your world? When did you realize this is something you at least wanted to dig into a little bit further?
Well, for about the last year and a half, day job things have kind of taken me away from my normal Instagram or my cooking, my backyard experience. And during that time, I spent a little time over on TikTok doing something completely different besides, my normal niche of live fire and cooking. And then when the opportunity to come back to Instagram, because, TikTok really wasn't my thing. It's kind of a different sort of platform, but I learned that I liked that video platform. And when I did come back to Instagram, I felt that Reels thing's going to have some legs. It's going to have some traction. So I brought that back with me when I returned to Instagram.
When do you see it personally that for whatever reason, because there's different, hopefully I'm not educating somebody on what these social media platforms are at this point, but there's different portions of the Instagram platform. You have your feed, which a lot of people really protect and won't just post willy-nilly into. That's almost where I would call that being a curated portion of the Instagram platform. But then you have Reels, which we're talking about here this evening. You also have Stories, which is where I post a lot of stuff because it's there for 24 hours and then it evaporates. It doesn't always have to be brand specific or, whatever you're trying to influence potentially. It can be something completely out of the realm of what you would normally cover because, once again, it's there. It lives for a short period of time and then away it goes. When do you see Reels being a thing for you in your account specifically?
Well, I just decided to make everything a reel because I liked that video platform. I still do some posting in my story and my feed, some still photography, but it just seemed to me to be the way the trend that it was going to go. So I took a run at trying to duplicate some of the things from TikTok over on Instagram. And I didn't mind it. I kind of enjoyed it. Just started going along posting reels, left them in my feed as well. So I still had a field grid, continued to do my stories, like kind of my habitual things. So I was basically posting in each of the 3 divisions of Instagram.
So the topic this evening is how you start making money specifically with Reels. So how does it even pop up as an option for you?
Well, I got an email that set me on a high alert from Instagram. First, let me back up. I had a few what I would say to me were sizable videos. And I mean sizable for me, that's 50 to 60,000 views. You know, I'm just not that person. So and then I had some 20s and some 40s. Got this notification from Instagram. A couple years ago, they started a bonus program to help budding creators. We would like to monetize some of your reels. And they started to offer several different ways that they would monetize these reels. So I took a good, long, hard look at that and decided to pursue it.
How did this... you said you were set on high alert, so how do you know it's not a scam or a fish? Do you immediately reply back and ask them questions, or do you go to Google and start looking for people with similar emails being sent to them, but they were had?
Well, there's no real people, in my opinion, in Instagram to reach out to. I think it's they're so the first thing I did obviously was check the email address, make sure that looked legit. Went into my account and also saw those opportunities listed in notifications in my account. And then I started up the Google box and said, is this thing really real? And it took me a while. It took me a good 30 days of before I say, yeah, I'm going to buy into this and sign up for it. So, because at some point you have to put in a payout account where they're going to deposit this money. So, but eventually I vetted it, felt it was pretty good, and said, hey, I'm going to give it a try.
What's the proposal from Instagram to you?
The first opening proposal was a pretty sweet deal. You make 5 reels. We're going to give you $10 for a reel, each one you make. And you have a time period. So that's the first proposal. The proposals since have been, okay, you have 30 days. You can make up to 150 reels. The max payout for this bonus will be $1,200. So, and that's a sliding scale range. During that bonus period, they might throw another one at you. At the end of the year, they said, hey, you do 1 reel, use this 2022 recap, we'll give you $10. So I'm like, hey, I'm in. I said, I'm going to go for it. So it varies on how they present, and it's somewhat structured and somewhat nebulous at the same time.
Do you think if you had 1 million followers that your compensation deal would be skewed up?
Yes, absolutely. Because when you have a plays bonus, so you have $0 to $1,200 available, the more your money increases, the less value the views have. So typically what I'm seeing in, my second plays bonus round, the first 100 comes fast, and then from there you just kind of stall out. So you're hoping you get something to hit big and maybe see some numbers. But your first 100, you can typically knock that out fairly quickly.
So the first couple offers to you really have nothing to do with you have to achieve a certain amount of views in order to get this money. It's just you got to bang out a number of reels, regardless of how they're performing. We're going to pay you X amount.
Correct. And it's really just that simple. And say this is some type of beta program that they're running. So I was fortunate enough to fall into it.
Do they give you realistic expectations then on what you can earn? In other words, is this something that you can bank on going forward, or like 1 month all of a sudden they could just turn you off? Or do you think that they would communicate with you if they decided they didn't want to use you anymore?
I think it's no, I don't think you have any clear cut. I'm not counting on any of this money. I didn't expect to get a second plays bonus as soon as my first one ended. So you don't know. They will tell you that your value of plays goes down as your income goes up. They won't give you a set number on that. They can shut you off of anything at any time. There's a few other contingencies. It cannot be any promoted content. So if you're trying to influence a brand or anything you do like that, anything that I do for the Best Moments show, when I put any promotion up for that, they can't be monetized, things like that. So there's a framework that's solid on their side. It's kind of loose for you. But hey, at the end of the day, I'm going to put up a reel. It's going to get some views. I'm going to make a few dollars. I don't think it gets any better than that for me.
Jon Solberg joining us here on the show. JonSolberg.com is website, JON, Solberg.com. So as your account appears in my feed, I see that you appear to be partial to the duet-style video. Basically, it starts with a split screen. There's a video off on one side that's going through whatever its content is, and then there's you on the other side that appears to be commenting / reacting on it. Are those the ones that just get the best traction for you from a view standpoint? You stick with it, or you just prefer to do it like that?
They seem to be getting the most traction, but in honesty, I started with a bias. I enjoyed those when I was over watching TikTok videos. I've gleaned some of that technique from some other creators, full disclosure there. So I enjoyed watching that. So I started that. And now that those seem to have gotten some traction, they seem to be the ones that do the best for me. So I've just kind of stuck with it.
All right, so let's bottom line it here, John. How much Instagram money is in that bank right now?
In the fourth quarter of 22, I will realize about $170 for the October, November, December payout. So
wow.
I'm not, I'm not quitting the day job by any means, but a dear friend of mine, no names please, taught me a long time ago, if you're going to do stuff for barbecue, you need to get paid.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to carry that trend forward.
And by the way, I mean, $170 is certainly better than somebody just coming right up there and kicking you square in the balls.
Yeah, and it's still kind of hard to believe when you look at my small following. It's a small channel, and my reach has grown now. I'm seeing between 40 and 60,000 plays a month. I'm sure that's up from 300 or 400. So I think the potential's there for something more to happen, but I'm not making bank on it.
John, let's bottom line a different segment of the account. From all the videos you've done, for all the views that you've accumulated over these videos, especially since you've put in the effort to try and meet these reelz requirements in order to get paid, what kind of a conversion rate do you have as it relates to new followers to your Instagram account?
All those metrics are available to you in your professional dashboard. So like right now, January for me is sucking at 0.05% of growth.
Wow.
Since I started in this bonus program, I would say that my average growth is 1.5%. So 1% being a good mean. So no, I'm not setting the world on fire. And at this point, I no longer am concerned with that number. The dynamics have changed. It's like, I'm going to put up a reel. I'm going to try to make my bonus plays and see where that goes.
Are you also, so since you found this as some kind of enjoyment at TikTok, but then brought it over to Instagram and reelz, are you now resharing the stuff back on TikTok or Twitter, other social media channels, because you can just share and cross-promote, cross-post on all these other platforms? You can make one thing but share it everywhere else. Are you doing that too?
Absolutely not. I understand that social media folks say, oh, you need to do these certain things. I think there really are no social media experts. So I'm just going to focus on one thing. You can't cross-pollinate these channels and be monetized. That's even one of the bonus plans, that you can't bring in a watermark from TikTok and use it. So I'm just like, no, I'm just going to focus on where I have a potential to possibly make some money and have some growth, and focus it on there.
What are the goals for 2023 in reelz?
That's a very good question, and I've thought about it a lot, because you could easily get sucked into this rabbit hole of chasing production quality and chasing content creation. My goal is just to continue down this path, to not get sucked into spending a lot of time. And what I want to learn is what really is going to matter. Like, I'm not going to research hashtags. Hashtags are not the thing. Or I'm going to pick and choose these things, test them, and run with them, and see if I can put up my 15-second video every day in 7 minutes or less and keep moving and maximize that small amount of money that I am making. That's my goal. My goal is not to be, everybody wants a number. Everybody's chasing a number. I'm not going to be any more popular than I am, and it's not going to change my world if I have 500,000 followers. So to be totally honest with you, I'm very intrigued by, I'm going to chase the money. That is like, and this money that I did made is going into my fundraisers anyway. So I'm like, I'm just going to see, hey, can I make $1,000 a month doing a dumbass 7-minute duet, 7-second duet, and that's going to be my entertainment, and I'll just see where it goes and let the chips fall where they may fall.
And you're trying to invest 10 minutes or less in getting one video up a day.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's doable, and sometimes that's not. So it's.
What's the longest time you've spent making a 15-second video?
Finding the content to back it up is sometimes the hard part, right? Like, I'm doing a duet where I'm using another clip from something. So finding that clip could be the consuming part. Very, very similar to when I do the Best Moments show.
Yeah.
Actually, producing the show is pretty straightforward. It's finding the content to produce the show. So, I'm probably spending 45 minutes a day every day in Instagram to find that clip and get it punched out. But hopefully, workflow wise, I'll be able to work ahead, get several in the can, save some drafts up, and make it a little more efficient. So hopefully at some point in the near future, I will be spending 30 seconds to make a 15-second video and put some money in the bank.
John, what's the Instagram handle so everybody can follow you and watch your reels?
JS00.
JS00.
Yeah, nothing fancy there.
All right.
So,
head on over to JS00 at Instagram. Give John a follow, watch his reels, and help him add to the fortune that he is amassing. John, appreciate the insider's look here on how this whole thing got started. I would have been immediately eerie on getting an email from Instagram, knowing the horror stories of some people we know within the industry getting their accounts jacked, and then it seems to be quite the ass ache to get it back under your possession. But certainly appreciate the insight here, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for the Embedded Correspondence.
Thanks so much. I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. That's Jon Solberg right there. So maybe some of you have had the same emails that John got. You thought it was a fish or a scam. Maybe it is, but it wasn't for John. He did his due diligence, and now he's towards $200 over the last quarter of 2022. That's something that is interesting to you. Maybe it's not, but if you got some time, you want to fish it out, see if it works for you, then there's a first-hand account for somebody that it's actually working for. John, very creative guy, of course. That's what he does. And now he's reaping some of those rewards. All right, we are going to be bringing in Joe Martinez as the fans of Joe are just going bonkers on YouTube. Let me talk to you about Green Mountain Grills, some of the best pellet cookers out there on the market today. A choice line, a prime line. Now, I might have been a little forward in saying that Green Mountain Grill's out of the woods as it's related to all of the Traeger lawsuit stuff. It's slowly getting there. I feel way more confident in this resolving itself in Green Mountain Grill's fashion, but I might have put the cart a little bit more ahead of the horse there last week. But overall, still feeling very positive about this thing resolving itself and everybody getting to operate under their own terms. GreenMountainGrills.com. Sold through dealers only, much like the Primo Grills I was telling you about last segment. Go to GreenMountainGrills.com, find a dealer near you, see which one fits you best, and then take that one home after you get educated. They also have a great number of accessories over at GreenMountainGrills.com, especially if the dealer doesn't have them, so you can buy them wherever the grills are sold or over on the website, GreenMountainGrills.com. Get that pizza oven insert. You're going to love it. Fits in all the prime line cookers and all of the choice line cookers. What's better than a high heat pizza night on Saturdays? Everybody gets to make their own. They're done in a couple minutes. Away you go. GreenMountainGrills.com, and we are back with Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Let's get back to a guy who has more experience giving you his opinion than he actually has cooking. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
And we thank Jon Solberg for joining us last segment. JS00, his Instagram handle. Follow him on Instagram. Last year, I introduced you, the barbecue world, to the first barbecue podumentary that featured my pal and the Barbecue Central Show embedded correspondent from the great city of Utah, Rusty Monson, as we covered his new barbecue trailer vending business through each quarter of 2022, and it was a hit. So how does one follow up 2023? You find somebody else who has the balls to do the same thing, but in a different area of the country, but most importantly has agreed to share all the info with you, the listener, the good, the bad, the ugly, and here in his first of 4 quarterly appearances in 2023, longtime Centralite YouTube creator and now business owner of Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue, Joe Martinez once again joins me. Hey, Joe. I got no sound on you, Joe. Got nothing.
How about now?
Now we got it.
All right.
Look, I'm a little worried about that microphone. Can you tap the microphone? Make sure that that's it. Nope. I got the computer mic.
Uh-oh.
I don't have the USB. Did you connect? Do you have the little gear cog in the window there?
There's no gear cog.
No? All right. You're going to have to close all the way out. You a Mac guy?
No.
All
Windows.
Right. Windows. All right. So come all the way back out. Make sure that your input and output are set to that microphone, and then jump back in. We'll be off and running. We'll see you in just one moment. Well, I thought for sure we were right there, last guest of the evening. Even Meathead's mic worked properly, but not Joe's. And we do not stand for inferior sound on this show, ever. No, sir. No, sir. There appears to be a show called The Hot Seat that I'm not aware of. I assume it's on YouTube, so I'm making a note of that right now. Hot Seat.
Is that any better?
Stand by. Tap your microphone. No. Is it on?
Wow. Yeah, it's on.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I wonder what the deal is here this evening. And your sound input and your sound output are set to the microphone. Or do you run a real mixer, or is that a USB mic?
It's a USB mic.
Yeah. And you have your input and output set to whatever the hell that thing is?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, couldn't be more odd. Just trying to think.
Can you hear me okay or no?
Yeah, we'll roll like this through the first one, and then maybe we'll sound check. See, that's my fault, Joe. I said we should sound check, but no. If you're gonna make a change, you're gonna have to close back out and come back in again.
All right, give me 1 second.
All right, do it one time. Right back at it. Oh, here we go. I love this one.
Hey.
I like how he lectures Joe like he's a YouTube newbie. Yeah. Go ahead, Joe. Let's hear it.
Is that any better?
Hit the mic. Yeah, of course.
All right.
I could tell immediately you're way more rich. The sound is... Look, I don't know who where was that at? Hojo's Barbecue is telling me, lecturing you about who's a YouTube. Look, we all know Joe Martinez is a YouTube sensation. All you have to do is show up to his page, see his 30,000 YouTube subscribers. Or what's your YouTube count these days, Joe?
I believe it's 216,000.
Sorry, 216,000. I'm no mathematician, Joe, but you're just shy of 250,000 YouTube subscribers. But listen, Hojo, I'm king of audio quality. I know what the hell I'm listening to. I could tell immediately something was off. So don't talk to me about how I'm lecturing Joe about being a YouTube newbie. This has nothing to do with being a YouTube newbie. This has something to do with being an audio expert, and you needing to shut the fuck up. Joe.
Love it.
Before we get into the trailer and business stuff this evening, many of the folks know you from the YouTube channel, of course, as we're just talking about. What are the plans in 2023 for YouTube channel growth?
Well, I got started on YouTube, and I'm going to continue to put out content on YouTube. Now, I got started with in trying to help the backyard barbecue guy and improve his barbecue game and stuff. So I'm going to continue to do that, continue to put out content. But much like yourself, Greg, a lot of my subscribers are interested in the business. They want to see the behind the scenes. I did one video on a day in the life of a food truck, and it was just a simple day. I think we're trimming briskets that day, and the audience wants to see more of that. So I'm going to bring a lot more of behind the scenes videos along with the backyard cooks.
Malcolm had made a point last week to say that he's still going to be releasing the videos that we've come to know and love him for, but it sounded like he was going to give a lot more attention to the shorter form stuff, either the YouTube shorts or the stuff on TikTok, Instagram, the reels, like we were talking to John with. Same for you, or no?
No, we all, us guys that are on YouTube, or us people that are on YouTube, we got an email from YouTube yesterday, in fact, that they're going to put a lot more focus on the short content, and that now it's going to be monetized, and it'll be recommended to you. So if you're a subscriber to a channel and you put out a short video, before YouTube would not recommend your shorts, but now they are. So that could lead to channel growth, because those shorts, I mean, let's face it, those can get 1 million views in a week. Whereas a normal video, it could take a year to get 1 million views, depending on the video.
Joe Martinez joining us here. Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue is the YouTube channel and the name of the barbecue trailer. So full disclosure, Joe, at this time, you are operating the barbecue business, and you have been for a number of months at this point. And we'll catch up on that over the next few visits. But let's go back to the beginnings. As you had mentioned on the show before, you were working a corporate job. I believe it was O'Reilly's Auto Parts. But at some point, barbecue had to start creeping into your mind. So when do you first start evaluating the possibility of doing something like this that you're doing now?
Well, this is all fairly new, but I want to take you back. So I had a few friends retire at 50 years old, and I said, I want to retire at 50. I mean, what do I have to do to retire at 50? So, I started to let my mom know, my wife know, obviously, that, hey, I want to retire at 50 years old. And so I put a plan together. Even though I didn't write it down, it was in my head of the plan that I had to do. And a lot of that, involves money. And so what I started doing is, how they recommend that you send an extra mortgage payment every year, and you'll cut out X amount of dollars from your loan. So I started sending a double payment for the last 2.5, 3 years. I've been sending a double payment to cut that down. So financially, I had to prepare myself. And my plan was never to start a food trailer. It was more to do YouTube, to retire at 50 years old. That was my plan. I wanted to retire before I turned 50, but not to start a barbecue food truck. That was fairly recent, believe it or not. It's kind of crazy, right? But my plan was to retire at 50 years old and do YouTube full time and do some catering on the side, and just live my life,
Did you not like working? I don't know what the job entails at O'Reilly, or if you just hated it every day, or what, or if you just targeted 50 because, like you said, you saw some dudes retire at 50 and you just wanted to do that without having a plan of, other than catering and doing YouTube. Did you hate the corporate run?
No, I loved it, man. That's the best job I've ever had. Obviously, it's 24 years with the same company. I mean, you learn to love the customers and the team members from O'Reilly, and O'Reilly will always be a part of me, because O'Reilly is what made it possible for me to get where I'm at financially. But it does take a lot of planning to do what I did. Again, my plan was never to start a barbecue food truck until some recent events, pretty much.
All right, so when do you make that decision that Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue is going to be a real life thing that you're going to be doing?
So in November of 2020, and I don't want to turn this show around, but in November 2020, my mom um, uh, got the coronavirus, and in December she passed away. And she was my number one fan, and she was a big supporter of what I did. She taught me a lot of what I know on cooking in general. So, at that point, my mom still wanted to do a lot of other things aside from, retiring at 65 and not having a whole lot of time left to do whatever you want to do, travel, etc. So I didn't want to be that guy. I wanted to, I took my plan to retire at 50, but my mom passed and really changed my whole perspective in life, and do what you love doing, then it no longer becomes work. I'm sure you've heard that before. And it became really clear to me that, barbecue is what I love. I've been barbecuing since I was 20 years old. But, professionally now I'm doing it professionally, and I have to because that's my job. But, that losing a family member that, you're pretty close to, it kind of breaks you, and it wakes you up, man, really quick. And, so that's pretty much when I made my plan to, I'm still going to retire at 50, but I'm going to take on this challenge of owning a barbecue business.
And this is just November of last year.
November of 2020.
Oh, 2020.
So
okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, November 2020. So, if you fast forward to 2022, I'm sorry, in February, that's kind of when I think everybody knew that I was eventually going to retire because they saw my YouTube channel growing. I mean, a lot of my customers and team members that worked for O'Reilly knew that I had a YouTube channel and I was doing really good at it. And it was growing really fast. And, they all asked questions, and stuff like that. And I said, they were telling me, hey, are you going to retire pretty soon? And I said, I'd like to, and in the back of my mind, and my wife obviously knew that, I did want to retire at 50 and I had this plan. So in February of 2022 is during my evaluation, the big bosses were in town and they said, hey, we want to possibly look at you to promote you and move you to San Antonio. And I said, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I got big plans, man. I'm going to start my barbecue food truck. So I gave the longest notice known to mankind because, I ended up leaving O'Reilly a few months down the road.
So in 2020, you make the decision, mom passes away. That's a big event for you, obviously, and it refocuses you on some things you want to do. Do you set an open, after you realize the food truck is going to be the thing, when do you set an opening date for?
So I wanted to make sure that we didn't have a lot of bills. I mean, I'm the type of guy, Greg, that if I don't have the cash to buy it, I'm not going to buy it. I don't like financing things. I don't like owing banks money, et cetera, taking loans out. So, the part of the plan was to, again, pay down our house. I had invested money in O'Reilly and stock options and stuff. And, so I cashed out some stock options and paid off a lot of the bills that we did have, all of our cars and stuff. But the plan to open, it was way ahead of September 24th. That's when my first day that I opened the business. But there's a lot of things that come up, Greg, that like roadblocks that come up when you're opening a barbecue business that you don't expect. So things kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And, in fact, when they were doing my evaluation at O'Reilly, they said, well, when are you leaving? And I said, well, sometime in the third quarter. Well, I waited till the last month of the third quarter to leave because things just weren't, the trailer wasn't ready. The health department was requiring a canopy for my smoker. That's another $4,000 that I didn't account for. So things just kept popping up that kept delaying me leaving O'Reilly and setting an opening date. But once I left, then I set a true hard opening date.
All right. So I'm going to try and, keep us on task as much as possible. And I have a list of things that hopefully are going to answer all these questions for folks as we're leading up to selling that first pound of barbecue. So who are you consulting with as you start this process to help you get moving in the right direction? Because I think it sounds sexy. But when you actually stop to think about it, if you have no background in it or you have no experience in it, it has to be a very daunting task.
Yeah, so I was blessed, man. Richard Funk, that owns Desert Oak Barbecue, that's one of the top 50 barbecue joints in Texas. He and I became pretty good friends. He lives in my neighborhood, and I talked to him what I was going to do. He's like, "Do it, Joe. You know, any way that I can possibly help you, let me know." And so I worked a couple of shifts at his restaurant, and which was really nice. So I worked a late night shift, and I worked a really early shift, like 3 a.m. So, I got to see the barbecue business from a view that I was never had access to. I wanted to see what I was going to run into. So I was blessed with him. And then, Sean Walchef, that you may know, Greg, he has a really neat show on Clubhouse. And, I jumped on there, and there's a lot of people that own restaurants, and I jumped in, and I had a lot of questions. I didn't know, like you said, Greg, I sold parts for a living, and I'm a backyard barbecue guy, but I had a passion of opening up a business. So, Greg, Richard Funk and Sean helped me a lot. Sean introduced me to Clubhouse and his group, and in that group, I met a lot of people that had a lot of good advice. So, yeah.
How are you taking into account your retail area and how much barbecue you may or may not have to make?
That was the biggest monkey on my back, if you will, because I didn't know how much to cook. I didn't want to undercook and upset customers, and I didn't want to overcook and have all this leftover barbecue. So on that group with Sean Walchef, that digital hospitality group on Clubhouse, there's a gentleman, Charlie Eblin, that owns Single Tree Barbecue, and I asked a question because Sean was like, "Joe, what kind of questions do you have?" And I said, "Well, quite honestly, the thing that I'm losing sleep on is how much barbecue do I cook?" And Charlie Eblin, again from Single Tree Barbecue, set me straight and said, "Joe, don't worry about how much barbecue you're going to cook. Just cook the best damn barbecue you can possibly cook. And because that's your first day that you're going to open, and let the rest be what it is. You're going to run out, or if you're going to have some barbecue left over, it is what it is. Just do the best possible job that you possibly do." And great advice.
So the spot that you're getting now, or as you're looking for a spot, let's say, because I assume right off the bat, this isn't going to be brick and mortar, or you're not going to be buying out a burnt out Tasty Freeze or something like this. It's going to be a trailer, more of a mobile situation. So are you looking for one of here in Cleveland, we have food truck and trailer parks where it looks like you can go rent space for a month, or maybe it's for the summertime because, we get winter also here for 7 months out of the year. A little different where you're at. So are you looking for somewhere where you can just land that bad boy and you're there in more of a permanent situation, or is it just like, hey, I want to anchor here on the days I'm open, but then I want to be able to pull and go, wherever the business is?
Funny you should ask. So I was going to set up in an O'Reilly parking lot, one of our big stores, and I had gotten approval. I'm leaving, but there I am asking, "Hey, can I park in your parking lot?"
And by the way, can you sponsor me too?
Yeah. So they said, "Yes, absolutely." But a week before I opened, Greg, I get a phone call from this food truck park that I wanted to be at, but they already had a barbecue guy there. So they didn't want to have two barbecue guys there. So a week before I was about to park in O'Reilly, I get a phone call and said, "Hey, we want you to be our barbecue food trailer. We know who you are, etc. We made a spot for you. Come check it out whenever you can. Bring your smoker, bring all your firewood, etc." And the rest is history. So I was blessed there again.
Is there any thought to startup costs? And so you had mentioned you're not a big bank guy. You don't want loans. You had liquidated some of your retirement stuff to buy down, and you're also making the extra house payments to put yourself in a better financial spot. But had you given any thought, or were you floated any startup figures that you could at least work off of?
Yeah, so I did a lot of shopping leading up to finally pulling the trigger on getting my trailer. I did a lot of shopping, and mind you, Greg, I did all of this in the middle of a pandemic, so prices were crazy, and I was like, "What? How much is that trailer going to cost?" But I found a place here in El Paso. The guy built it from the ground up, and I had figured, hey, let's do it for $45,000 or whatever. And that's what it cost me for the trailer. But there's a lot more than that, a lot more money that goes into that. That was just the trailer and some equipment, not, I still had to buy a fridge, a food warmer, and I wanted a 6-burner stove with an oven, etc. So all that, it adds up. It total money was double what I thought it was going to be.
45 encompasses the pit, though, too, right? Is that what we're calling the trailer, or is that separate?
That's separate.
All right. We'll get into that here in a minute. So you're a married guy, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from telling your wife you want to retire at 50, you try and figure out a plan to work in order to get it there. What other conversations now are you having with your wife about Joe Martinez leaving cushy corporate, very successful Joe Martinez O'Reilly guy to I'm going to be a barbecue trailer guy?
Well, my wife supported me 100%. And she has, ever since we got married, she allows me to do, and I, within reason, right? So she allows me to do what I want, and I had her support. And so we still had to talk about insurance, hey, how long is it going to take for you to add me to your insurance? Cause I'm going to leave O'Reilly. I don't have insurance anymore. So you got to think about those things too, your health insurance and all that stuff. So that's something that we had to do. And that was part of the plan, on when I was going to leave O'Reilly, when I had insurance, cause I wanted to make sure I had that coverage. But there was a lot of talking, and I want to get to the point where my wife no longer has to work either, so she can work with me. So
does she want to work with you?
One of these days that happen. Oh yeah, she
All
works
right.
with us already. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you talk at all or have this discussion of, Joe, I love you, I support you, anything you want to do, I want to see you happy. However, maybe we should put a timetable on Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue where if we haven't hit this benchmark of success or that benchmark of success, we're going to pull the plug. You're going to sell the trailer, you're going to sell the pit, whatever, and you're going to claw back to O'Reilly and get that job back.
That never happened. There's no plan B. This is it. We're going to make it work, man. And so there was never any of that talk. I think that would just kind of put me on edge, but I'm a pretty aggressive, and I set some goals, and I'm making sure I achieve those goals.
How much do you need to make selling barbecue in order to have this switch make sense?
Well, I did that math too, Greg, and I need to sell at least $25,000 a month in barbecue to make up what I lost, obviously leaving at O'Reilly.
Yeah.
That's paying the bills. That's paying, my employees, which is right now it's my brother and my daughter. Those are the only employees that I have, and paying for the food and all that other stuff, so it's about $25,000 where I start to make a profit and can recoup some of that money that I lost, obviously leaving O'Reilly.
You can pay your daughter $13,000 and it's tax-free. About that. Do you know that?
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that.
That's right.
She might get a bonus.
Yeah, no doubt. Permits and paperwork. What does that cost, and how quickly do you attain that?
That's probably the easiest thing, Greg. It was $380 with the health department, and they test your water. They make sure your fridge comes up to temperature, and they give you a stamp, and you're good to go. Go sell some barbecue.
The biggest thing, aside from getting into the financials of it, realizing if you're going to really be able to do this or not, it's barbecue, so you're going to have to go buy a pit. How do you decide on which pit you're going to be buying?
Time was running out, Greg, and it came down to turnaround time. Price obviously was pretty important, and I read the story about Bison Smokers, and they have an amazing story, where this guy hired his students he's a high school welding instructor, and he hired his students to start this company. And their whole story, there's a lot more to the story that I'd like to tell you one of these days, Greg. I think you'd be interested in it. Was when I called him, and the guy was, solid guy, and he said, "Hey, I can have that pit for you in 2 months." That's what I went with.
Joe Martinez joining us here on the show, Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue owner. What was the cost of that?
The pit?
Yeah.
$18,000.
$18,000.
18,000, and it's on a trailer.
While the pit is being built, what else are you doing to get going for opening day? For instance, are you devising a menu?
Yeah, that's one thing that my brother and I, and honestly, I got my neighbors involved. I was cooking a lot of food, trying to perfect the sides, the banana pudding. I had neighbors tell me, "Hey, man, this is banana pudding. Where's the bananas at?" I was kind of skimping on the bananas, and I said, "Man, he's got a point." So, mac and cheese. Just having them try everything, the beans, and I got criticism from them, and they said, "Hey, it needs salt, or it's got too much salt, or a little bit more pepper, etc." So, yeah, we revised our menu, took pictures, and said, "Hey, this is what we're going to roll with." But we really sat down and perfected the menu to make sure that everything tastes good, and that's what we're going to go with.
Were you able to put some relationships together with meat suppliers and other vendors? Is that a pretty easy thing to do, or because you're just starting out, they're a little touchy?
I started with 3 suppliers, Greg, and I'm down to 1. And one will usually outshine the other one. And I work with Benny Keith right now, and my sales rep, is the reason why I buy from there. This guy is amazing. And I got to tell you, that's one thing, Greg, that I want to tell everybody that starts a business is you don't want to be running around store to store buying the cheapest chicken, or buy your briskets from here and go buy your containers over there. You don't have time for that, man. You got to build a relationship with your food supplier, and they deliver it to the food truck park. They're punctual. Everything's always right. The food is great. And I don't have time to run around store to buy stuff.
I remember Rusty talking last year about people doing this specific business, barbecue trailer business, of course, losing their ass on accounting and costing. They don't know how to do it properly. They're not accounting for every thin gilder, and eventually those gilders add up to a lot more gilders, and then all of a sudden you're really in a bad financial situation. Also, they don't understand how costing, the process of that, is actually applied in order to make sure that their accounting's in line. So how do you make sure that you're in the best spot for that?
Well, I hired a bookkeeper. I was going to plan on doing everything myself. And again, I'm doing what I like to do, Greg. What I know what to do or how to do is, and that's cook barbecue. I'm not an accountant, leave that to the professionals. They do all my payroll. They do all my taxes. I send them certain reports, credit card statements, receipts and stuff like that. But they do they give me a P&L. So kind of keep me in track, man. It gives me peace of mind when I know that I'm making a little bit of money, and not having to, do all that stuff myself. Because again, when you have a barbecue business, you don't have time to do that. Not yet anyway.
As you're leading up to opening day, how far in advance, or do you even bother looking at traditional marketing hype to build a zest for Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue?
I didn't do any marketing except for social media. Social media is huge, Greg, as you know. So I did a lot of TikTok, a lot of Instagram. I mentioned it on my YouTube channel. I went live and talked about my barbecue business, but I still get people that walk up and say, "Hey, I thought you were down in South Texas, like in San Antonio. I didn't know you were in El Paso." And so, I think that's something that I have to do in 2023 is market my business a little bit more. Maybe a radio station or a news station, something like that, and do more marketing to bring that, put my name out there pretty much.
Many people, and you alluded to it in the beginning of the segment here, many people say that once you start working your side gig or your passion as a real job, that excitement and passion quickly dissipates because now it is the thing. It is now the pressure of making sure you're able to continue to exist in whatever lifestyle you had previous to doing this. A lot of people say, "Hey, why don't I do the Barbecue Central show full time?" And I always say, even though I'm generating what some people would consider to be a full-time income from sponsorship of the show, if I left Peterbilt to do this, it would change everything. It would take all the fun out of it. I've always done it like this because this is how my passion stays in the show. Whether people like it or not is irrelevant, but this is what works for me. Plus, I like to make all of the money that I can make when I'm making all of the money. So if Peterbilt and the show don't ever compete, and I figured out a way to never have them compete because it's not fair to one or the other, why not do both? What about you? You worked the corporate life. You have this passion for barbecue. You're obviously very good at it. You have a huge YouTube channel. What's it like actually in the trenches of working barbecue, and has it sucked some of that zest out?
No, although I'm working the hardest I ever have in my life, Greg, with this business, I'm up early and I come home late. I still love it. This is what I love doing. And it never crossed my mind to do both at the same time either. There's no way. Both O'Reilly demanding a lot of attention. I did some competition barbecue early on, and the reason I didn't pursue it was because O'Reilly demanded a lot of attention, and so does the competition barbecue world. I said, no, I can't do this. So I obviously I stayed with O'Reilly, but now that this is my full-time job, I'm working my butt off like never before, but I am loving what I'm doing, being my own boss, serving customers and cooking barbecue. Man, that's what I love doing.
Prior to 1 pound going out that serving window, Joe, how much are we in total money-wise before we get going?
Man, a lot more than what I planned. So
what did you plan on?
I planned around 45,000, but because of the pandemic, it drove the prices up, and getting a refrigerator was hard to get. Getting a food warmer was hard to get. So if you wanted it, you had to pay for it. And I mean, you work at a Peterbilt, and I'm sure the trucks were going for a lot more than before the pandemic. So I ended up out of pocket. I was in $93,000. That's the trailer, the smoker, all the pots and pans that go into the trailer, the whole 9 yards. So it's a lot more than what I expected.
All right, so you're 95,
but I saved enough for it.
Roughly 95 in, and now that the business is open, you're trying to work some of that off. And this is just, you're not loaned out. This is money that you had that you spent, so you're not in debt, but I mean, technically it's more than you had anticipated.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's green cash.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Anything else that we haven't covered in this portion of the interview? Because I figure in 3 months' time when we join back up again, we're going to talk about from, when the window opens from, that first 90 days of operation. But anything else preliminarily or in the prep that we haven't covered that's most important for people to consider, or something that you went through that you want to pass along?
No, not really. I mean, I think that we'll get into that. I don't want to spoil the next show, because the first day that we were open, Greg, is a fascinating story that I think people will like, and I don't want to share any of that now. But
right.
I will say that if anybody wants to start a barbecue business or any type of business, and you have the money to do it, is do it, man. Go out and do it. There's nothing better. But you're gonna work the hardest you've ever have in your life, but I think it's going to be rewarding. When the story ends, I think it'll be a pretty good story.
Let me circle back to the menu here just for a second. What did you land on? Was there a lot of stuff, or was it one of those pretty simple barbecue menus?
Simple barbecue menu. I have added a lot of things that I wanted to add when we initially opened, but I cut that back. I said, no, let's just go with a basic menu, basic sides. But now I've got more items. I mean, I got a pretty big menu for a food truck, Greg. It's a pretty extensive menu, and I have more items that I want to add, but I'm going to save that for down the road.
All right. Joe Martinez is joining us here on the show. Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue is the place to be. So if you're, where are you located at?
I'm in El Paso, Texas, inside Buddy's Beer Barn.
Inside Buddy's Beer Barn. You can get some of the best barbecue, probably the best barbecue in El Paso, Texas. Is the goal to have DV show up and sample your barbecue and get on that top 50 list at some point? Or do you not even give a shit?
I would love that, Greg. I'm not going to lie. I think that's, what other food business has something like that, that they strive for? I mean, Nobody else, no other pizza. No, there's no guy out there that's trying all the pizza joints and saying, "Hey, this is the best." But in barbecue, I think we're fortunate to have somebody like that. But I ain't gonna lie, I'd love to have him show up and, maybe feature me. Who knows?
All right, if you're not subscribed to him over on YouTube, find him, Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue. Almost 250,000 of you are watching him currently, but there's always room for more on the YouTube ship, so get over there, hit the subscribe button, and smash the dingy bell and whatever the hell else you YouTube people do. And if you are in El Paso, grab some of his barbecue, of course. And in 90 days, Joe, we will reconvene and we will hear about day one operations of Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue. Appreciate the insight and the full honesty and candor, and we'll look for you in 90 days.
Thanks, Greg. It's been fun.
You got it. There he is. Joe Martinez, owner of Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue. So if you are looking to open a food trailer, that was Joe's journey from when he started thinking about it and when he actually got to opening day one. $95,000 spent, not in loans. Big difference there. He's not taking it. He's not in debt $95,000, but he has spent $95,000 of his own money to get where he's going. But again, as he had mentioned, doing it through the pandemic, yes, and doing it through some of the most high-priced times and scarcely available times. He mentioned, hard to get a fridge. I know, we moved in the middle of the pandemic. It took 5 months to get a freaking fridge. But then I got a free fridge, but we won't talk about that. So I'll look forward to rejoining Joe in the second quarter and hearing what day one and then 90 days out from that looks like, and appreciate his insight and honesty. So hopefully that's inspired some of you or deterred some of you, depending on what you were hoping to have happen. As we get ready to head on out here, let me talk to you about week 26 of the Do Wellness program. Oh, yes. I saw some of the comments. Look at these two guys. Do either of them eat barbecue? Why? Because I'm not fat. Why? David Leans. Do Wellness. My pal David McDowell has made me into a barbecue lean machine. Absolutely, I can cook all the steaks, chickens, briskets, and ribs and eat them all that I want, but I'm making sure we're doing it in the right way, making sure that I'm making proper choices. You can do it too. DavidLeans.com/BBQ. That's DavidLeans.com/BBQ right now. And you could get on this plan and join me. You might be 26 weeks left, but that's all right. You can be 26 weeks behind. We all get there on our own process, doing it the right way. DavidLeans.com/BBQ. DavidLeans.com/BBQ. New year, new you? Don't use the new year as a time to do something. Don't use it as a time mark. Just do it. DavidLeans.com/BBQ. We'll wrap the show right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Whole packers, full racks, legs and thighs, injecting butts. If you've never heard this before, you might think you found the best XXX show ever. Let's get back to the most homoerotic host out there today, Greg Rempe.
And we thank Joe Martinez for joining us last segment. Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue over on YouTube. Find him on all the social medias as well, the same channel. And we look forward to meeting with him next quarter. Also, looks like Joe might have shared that he was going to be on the show this evening, and those weirdo YouTube types showed up all show long. Hung through it. Hated every second of it until they got to Joe, and then they loved every second of it. Don't come back next week, you pukes. Hey, all the way back in the first hour, Meathead and I talked a little bit of KOJI. We talked about KOJI on beef. We talked about KOJI on butter. Okay. Meathead is not going to be at NBBQA. However, I believe that Clint Cantwell, his second in command, is going to be at NBBQA. So if you're going to that conference, look for Clint, but it's probably not going to be Meathead. Then we spoke with Robert Moss, robertfmoss.com. We talked about the difference between a cookout and a barbecue and a whole bunch of other stuff. Second hour, Jon Solberg talked about making money on Instagram and how he was able to do that, how he is doing that, and what his goals are for 2023. And then we closed out the show with my pal and yours, Joe Martinez, from Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue, about him ramping up to opening up that food truck, the inspirations that came about to help him make that decision, and what it was like leading up to day number one. And as I said before, 90 days from now, we'll learn about day one, and then 90 days out from that. There you go. Big show planned for you next week. It's the third Tuesday, so we have Mike Lang, we have Jess Pryles, a number of other folks showing up on the big show. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. Follow me socially if you don't already at BBQ Central Show on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and the Snappers. So how do I always leave you? September 11th, 2001. I will never forget. Until next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, this is your program host, the proud U.S. American, Greg Rempe. Good night now.
This is Dino Dan from Cypress, California, and you're watching the Barbecue Central Show.